Hey everyone, this is Kalegi with Tim Moore reminding you that SportsSpeak is now powered by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the one-stop shop for tickets to sporting events, concerts, and so much more.
Use the promo code SportsSpeak at checkout for $20 off your first purchase.
SeatGeek, let there be live. Now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of SportsSpeak Live, episode 163, powered by SeatGeek. Promo code SportsSpeak, all caps, one word, $20 off your first purchase. I'm Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
We have Zoe Alter with us, our resident Lions fan, and for the first time ever, we can celebrate the Detroit Lions because they are in the NFC Championship game, and Zoe was there for that divisional playoff game last week. We'll talk about that. We'll break down the other games as well, including the Buffalo Bills coming up short and going wide right yet again. We'll talk about the NFL finalists for MVP, Comeback Player of the Year, some controversy with both of those, and finish with the bizarre situation with the Milwaukee Bucks firing a coach who started the year 30-13. But Zoe, got to get to you first. So you go to Detroit, you get to see your Lions after you saw them win a playoff game for the first time in forever, and then they follow it up, and now we'll have a chance to play for a spot in the Super Bowl.
I'm literally in disbelief. It's so crazy because every time I talk about this, all I can do is smile and giggle because it really doesn't feel real. I have to pinch myself. Honestly, it's crazy. I knew going into this year, I talked to you guys, but every year, I hype up the Lions. I'm oh, this is going to be our year. This is going to be our year. I have so much faith. But then things, actually came together this year. And then in the last game of the season, when Sam Laporta got hurt, I was so this is the Lions. I'm so everything we had building for us is going to fall apart. But it's kind of coming back together. So it's really exciting. Being at the game was so exciting. I love being at Ford Field. I love Detroit fans. I just think no one's there because they don't want to be there. Everyone's there because they love Detroit so much and they love the team so much. So it's just a great atmosphere. So loud, so amazing. Those, apparently I didn't know you could hear the Jared Goff chants on TV, but I was told that apparently you could. I was part of them, so I take full credit for that. But it was such an amazing experience seeing it live. I'm not gonna lie, at halftime I was terrified. I was oh my god, the Lions are about to blow this to Baker Mayfield, and that was humiliating. But then they got it together. Jared Goff got his act together. I think it was just such an exciting game to be at. I'm not gonna lie, it was probably my favorite thing that's happened this year so far. And I know we're only at late January, but genuinely I don't know if anything could beat that other than if the Lions do win the Super Bowl, which I feel is very unlikely. I think the one thing I do think the Lions deserve to be in this Final Four. I know a lot of people are oh, it's a fluke that they're there. I don't believe it's a fluke that they're there. I think they're there for a reason. They've won a lot of tough games. There's a reason the Lions won 12 games this year, and that doesn't just come because of an easy schedule. They beat a lot of good teams, and they had to work to get to where they are. However, I do think when you match them up against the 49ers, it's a very uneven matchup. I think the 49ers have so many playmakers that go against what the Lions are good with. Sure, the run game, the Lions are good at stopping the run. But when you think about the Lions' biggest defensive issue this year, it's been the deep ball. And the fact that Debo probably is going to play, and you have Ayuk, and you have Purdy, who's been pretty good and just runs the offense well. It doesn't bode well for the Lions in that sense. I know they have all their defensive parts back, and that's really good news. It's good that CJ's back. It's good that James Houston is probably going to be back, because that helps the pass rush. But I am afraid. I have to say, I'm fully afraid. That defense of the 49ers is great. Fred Warner scares the crap out of me. I think he's going to absolutely decimate anything we have going on. The fact that Frank Ragnow is playing basically with every bone in his body injured is crazy. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he basically sprained his knee and his ankle and his foot and multiple things, and then just went back in and kept playing. So many of our guys, especially on the offensive line, are hurt. Our linebacking core, Alex Anzalone, who's are literally one of our best defensive players, is playing with broken ribs and has been for the past week. There are just some key players who are still performing, but I'm a little stressed about, because I'm okay, well, I know you're not at 100%, and to beat the 49ers, we're going to need to be at 100%. So it's going to be a really stressful game. Honestly, I'm not going into it without many expectations. I've been pleasantly surprised at what the Lions have been able to do. I mean, going into the first week, I was okay. I was yeah, they should have been that first game. And then against the Bucks, I was okay, it's Baker Mayfield, they should. But now that we've gotten to the NFC Championship, you're going against the 49ers team who has been there multiple years and really wants this, and is finally playing a team that they feel they can beat. So I would love to see the Lions go to San Francisco and beat them, and that would be great. But I would have much preferred to be playing the Packers in Detroit. I'm not going to lie. I think that would have been a much better game. But I have my fingers crossed. I'm very excited. I'll stop ranting to you guys. I'm sure you will get screaming texts from me during the game. I'm already like, I haven't been able to do any work this week, like for school. I'm so behind because I'm so stressed about what's going to happen. But I'm just excited. The Lions have never been in this territory before. We're proving ourselves as a team who can actually be in this, who can. I mean, the fact that we're in the playoffs with like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the 49ers, like that puts us in good company. Like the fact that the Lions were able to get there. And so I think that's just exciting as a fan of a team that's been horrible for so long and is considered horrible, like for a lot of history. It's nice to see us doing something. I am such a Dan Campbell stan. I would do anything for that man. Like if that man asked me to jump in front of a car for him, I would do it without him even asking. Like I am obsessed with him. So I would do anything for this team. I'm so down bad. And I'm just excited to see what they do. Even if this is the end of the road for them this year, I think the Lions have a really bright future ahead. And that's really exciting as a fan because I don't know if I've ever been able to say that before. Like the fact that I'm not looking forward to the draft because I just want the season to start again. I've never had this feeling before in my life. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing too, it's kind of reminiscent to the Jaguars the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl because their fans hadn't really seen anything. And even though they lost in the AFC Championship, so many people were happy because they just hadn't done anything like that in years. And for Lions fans, it was even longer. We'll see. At one point, last point I want to make, if Debo is hampered at all, I know he didn't put up the best numbers this season, but he's one of the only players that if he's limited or he's out, you legitimately have to change the game plan because there are several packages that Kyle Shanahan runs specifically for him because there's really nobody else in the league that's both a running back and a wide receiver.
And you also saw them try to run those packages at the end of the Packers game once Debo got hurt, and they didn't work. Like they tried to put Ayuk in Debo's place, and it literally just failed. And so I think that is the one thing that obviously you never hope for someone to be hurt. And I think this is where I'm having issues because I don't want Debo to be hurt. And I'm sick of people saying like games have an asterisk, like especially with the Chiefs game. Like you heard that like the first game of the season, they're like, oh, the Lions win has an asterisk. Like I don't want the Lions to the first Super Bowl they go to have an asterisk. Like that's going to piss me off if people are saying that. And people are always going to find something to say about the Lions. Like the Lions suck. They shouldn't be where they are. But I almost want Debo to play because I want the Lions to be able to beat them with Debo there. However, if Debo doesn't go, I do think that gives the Lions much better odds. And I do think the defense would be able to prevail a little bit more than they're going to be able to prevail because there's just so many aspects of the 49ers defense that are so hard to cover. And so if you can take one out, especially a really central aspect of it, you really only have to worry about Ayuk and Kittle then, and that makes your job a lot easier. So I agree.
Well, I was about to ask is how do you slow down the production of Kittle that we've seen? Because he is playing arguably his best football of his career in the postseason right now. What I saw in that last game for San Francisco against Green Bay was elite level tight end play. Of course, he's in the conversation for being the best tight end in all football. But
we have Sam Laporta. We have Sam Laporta. Don't say this to a Sam Laporta stan.
And the Lions have that guy who's killed like 2 tight ends in the last 3 weeks. So
that is true, but I just put it like this because I have a lot of faith. Again, I've made it very clear to you guys, I'm rooting for Detroit at this point to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you are.
Just because I want to I'm Super Bowl champion. I want that trend to continue. It happened all of last year, and I want it to continue this year. However, my one worry is this about Detroit. I think I was reading a stat yesterday where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like 6 or 7 straight games of 300 plus passing yards allowed, including 2 of those games being allowed to Nick Mullins of all quarterbacks in Minnesota. So it's like, I'm not saying that the Lions are going to fail in defense, but it's like Debo being hurt could be a positive because it emphasizes the run game more in McCaffrey, which really they haven't been that bad of a rush defense. It's just been passing defense. But it goes all the way back to when the Lions made these moves and made these weird trades when they were struggling a few years back, where it's just like, I don't feel like they've still fully bolstered on getting their secondary back to what it was once.
I think it comes from the fact that they tried really hard, right? So you brought Cam Sutton in, but he was never supposed to be your cornerback one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You were supposed to have Emmanuel Mosley be your shutdown guy. And you brought in CJGG for that reason. He went out week 2. We didn't see him for the rest of the season. So I think there's a lot of pieces that they did actively try to bring in and that they thought were going to be better. I mean, you've seen Iffy, I don't know, Ifeatu Melifonwu has stepped up in the biggest way. He has been a huge piece. You saw them draft Brian Branch, and you saw them go for these pieces that are kind of in the middle of the field rather than behind the field, but you saw them really try to bolster that secondary. But there's been a lot of unfortunate injuries. I mean, you finally got like Emmanuel Mosley back for literally 3 plays, and then he tore his other ACL. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just certain things that are unlucky. And I don't think it's that the Lions haven't been trying to build that. I think they have been trying to build that. I think that's a really big part of it. I just think one, you've gotten unlucky with injuries, and two, like in terms of run defense, like the Lions have one of the best run defenses in the league. Like the Lions are a great run defense. And so I think you focus a lot on that and you crowd the box, but by crowding the box, you open up a lot of pass defense. And then it's hard because we can't shut down a number one receiver. And that's my biggest worry is we don't have a cornerback one. And that's a fear. If you have a shutdown corner, it makes life a lot easier because you take out that top piece, right? So even if you have like,
I was gonna say that goes back to the question though, the fact about Kittle, because when you think about it, if Deebo Samuel doesn't play, their wide receiver one essentially becomes their tight end. And it's put a lot of emphasis on Christian McCaffrey, which I'm not saying the Lions wouldn't have the upper hand, but to me on paper, the Lions would have the upper hand if you eliminate Deebo Samuel from everything.
no, I agree. I agree. And I feel the same way about that because I think then, like with Kittle, you stick Brian Branch on him, you put Anzalone in the middle, and you just hope they do their thing. Brian Branch has been great. You put Iffy in the middle, let him roam. And I think the Lions, you're going to see a lot more nickel out of them, just in the sense that they're going to be able to cover more because they have to cover that middle of the field section that you can't like get necessarily with one-on-one. So I think you're definitely going to see that a lot more. But I agree. I think Deebo being out would be a huge help, but I think my one worry is like I feel like it puts bad karma into the air, especially as we are the Lions. Things happen to us. Like I don't want to say that like I don't want to see Deebo go because then it's like, oh, I hope his injury's bad. So obviously if Deebo doesn't play, I'm like, yeah, the Lions have the upper hand, but I'm scared putting that into the universe. Do you know what I'm saying?
And Eddie, if I could say one last thing before we move on.
Yeah.
I feel the best way for the Lions to win, if let's say even Deebo Samuel's hurt or not, what killed the Packers wasn't just a missed field goal in the end of that game. Let's be honest, Brock Purdy didn't play that good. He really didn't look that good. It's more of you can't allow the dink and dunk in big situations and give up on really undeserved points. It felt like in that game against Green Bay, until we get towards the end of the half, they just start playing loosely, and especially at the end of that game, you start playing loosely. And sometimes that's where I hate a little bit things with defensive coordinators, where I like they're being aggressive, but when there's a game in a situation like that was for Green Bay, I felt you have to be aggressive. So the reason why, going back to Dan Campbell, right? Dan Campbell is very known for being aggressive. This is where I feel aggression can help him in this scenario. Obviously, I know he's not calling the defensive plays, but the more point is that having that sense of urgency throughout preparation this week, I think will definitely give that Lions a little bit more of a motivational edge, as long as you're not allowing the easy stuff. Because when you allow the 49ers to play easy, they will make you pay for it. So that's the big thing for them. It's not even the explosive plays. I think they just need to not allow the dink and dunk.
I agree. And I think that's one of the, sorry, then I'll let us move on. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things that the Lions have issues with is that, like, okay, sometimes like they'll stop some stuff, but these little plays when you have third and long and then the other team converts, like, that's been the one thing that's killed the Lions all year. Like, that has been the little thing where, like, if there was one thing that I could say that I needed the Lions to stop doing was that. And so that's definitely a concern of mine. I think you're going to see a lot of blitzing because I think they're going to try to get Brock Purdy off his rhythm. Because if you do that, then you see he starts to throw interceptions. He starts to get worried and he can't find his
downfield. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
He's statistically proven to struggle throwing.
So that's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to try to shut down Christian McCaffrey. They're going to shut down the short game and make him throw long. And then you just have to hope that Brock Purdy fails, because if it's Brock Purdy at his best and when he's actually making the throws versus Cam Sutton, I mean, the only time Cam Sutton either draws a penalty on himself or the other receiver makes a great play and goes for a touchdown. Like, there's no in between. I've never seen Cam Sutton actually block a ball cleanly. So you have to hope Brock Purdy messes up. And so that's the biggest thing. They're going to bring the blitz. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to make him throw downfield. And it's going to be between if Brock Purdy can step up his game and make the throws downfield, or if the Lions throw him off, like rattle him, and he's not able to do that. But I agree. I think that's very much the key to the game. I think it depends how much Aiden Hutchinson gets home. He's a huge factor in this game. If James Houston is able to go, that's huge, because you need two pass rushers on the opposite side of the ball. And I also think it depends how healthy your offensive line is on the other side of the ball, because if you're able to stop Nick Bosa and give Jared Goff the time he needs to work, he's going to do anything he can. If Jared Goff has time, he's one of the most elite quarterbacks in this league. Like, I am serious, he's able to make throws that no one else is able to make. But the problem is you can't let him roll outside the pocket, because when he rolls outside the pocket, he becomes like, he doesn't become Nick Mullins, but he doesn't become something good. He's not Jared Goff anymore. So you got to keep him protected, and it depends a lot on the offensive line. I know Jonah Jackson's not playing, so that's a concern. They're going to have to really meld that offensive line. Hopefully no one gets hurt there and is able to stick their way in. And if Jared Goff has time to do and the offense works, the offense needs to be efficient. I mean, 49ers offense, they're so efficient. They always score. So the Lions need to be scoring every possession. They can't be punting. They can't be turning things over on 4th down. They need to be going down and at least getting some points every time they have the ball. And so I agree. I think it very much comes down to if Brock Purdy is able to convert those throws down the field, but I also think it comes down to if Jared Goff has the time to throw, because if the Lions offense is rolling, the defense rolls. It's like this cycle. So if the offense is able to roll and figure out Fred Warner and his little posse there, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and last point I'll make on this game, there's so much more pressure on the Niners than the Lions. Detroit didn't think they were going to be here. San Francisco did, and frankly, last year, before Brock Purdy got hurt in that conference championship game, he looked awful, and they barely beat the Packers. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but going to be a fun one. Let's shift to the AFC. Tim, first of all, I went 4 for 4 in our divisional round picks, so I am the pick'em champion this year. So take that, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I had to get desperate. I don't know what else to say. I had to pick 2 games, and unfortunately, the 2 games I picked, and shame on me for having faith in the Texans, but what a year it was for CJ Stroud. And, I felt like if there was going to be chaos, it was going to be in the AFC side. But man, I'm not saying this because I'm a New Yorker, but it is killing me that the Buffalo Bills cannot find any luck at this point.
It's not just luck. I mean, why are they running a fake punt with DeMar Hamlin? What are they doing? I'm trying to reach the point.
The memes are so bad. I can't go on media without seeing one.
I don't think Sean McDermott's a good coach. I really am starting to feel that way. I think that he is one of the reasons that this team is being held back. I know Josh Allen has been a turnover merchant, but he also led the league in touchdowns. And hey, Brett Favre found ways when he threw interceptions constantly to win tons and tons of playoff games. Josh Allen can't do that. And now the Bills, I feel like the window is going to close here because Stephon Diggs clearly wants out. And the defense is aging, clearly. So they are in big trouble. And how about the fact that the wide right, again, on a field goal? I mean, how many heartbreaks can they have? So now you get to the situation with the AFC title game, Tim. Chiefs and Ravens. I can see this one going either way. The Ravens have been the juggernaut this year. Baltimore, a very underrated, tough playoff environment for anyone to play in. And Lamar Jackson's had an elite season. And
he low-key sucks at home, though. And that's going to be helpful because he can't play at home for some reason other than last week. So I really would like to see the Ravens lose. I'm not going to lie. I'm so annoyed by their whole fan base.
You want to see Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl?
I don't care. Okay, first of all, there's no need to have Taylor Swift hate. Second of all, I love Patrick Mahomes. I love Travis Kelce. And it doesn't even matter that I love them. It's just the fact that I literally cannot stand the Ravens. Can you imagine how insufferable the Ravens fan base is going to be if they win a Super Bowl? They are already so ultimately insufferable. I cannot be around.
Listen, I don't know if they can be any more insufferable than anybody from Philadelphia. I like it'll never be.
Talking about them.
Odell broke, as bad as the Ravens may have played, Odell broke a curse because, might I remind you, he brought the Ravens on the off week, to my understanding, on a cruise. The last time Odell went on a boat, it did not end well in the playoffs. So I still hold that very accountable. That curse as a Giants fan exists in my heart still. And I'm glad it's been broken with Dable. But here's my thing about Baltimore, okay? Yes, Lamar is going to win MVP, right? I think that's fair to say. There's nothing changing it unless for some reason they want to account the playoffs for some odd reason, which, of course, by rule isn't the case. To me, it just comes down to the fact that you look at Baltimore's defense. It feels like that Baltimore's defense has finally started putting it together. On the other side, Kansas City, the only reason why most of this season they've been in play, outside of Patrick Mahomes' excellent quarterback play, is because of their defense. If I'm the pick of the 2 matchups, right, where I look at the San Francisco Lions game, I think that game's going to be high scoring. I think this game's going to be really low scoring. I'm not saying it's going to be like your 3-0 kind of game, but you're looking at 2 really solid pass defenses. You're looking at 2 relatively aggressive defenses. And I'm not trying to say the Kansas City Chiefs have the upper hand based on experience, but the Kansas City Chiefs, just like we talked about the Detroit Lions, right? And I know it's crazy because we just talked about the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl last year, but they haven't slumped over. They have nothing to lose. They've had their odds stacked against them this entire year. And to me, going back to when Mahomes, for example, had to play in the Super Bowl with absolutely no offensive linemen and getting terrorized left and right, this year he's had to do it with no receivers. And the fact of the matter is that I feel that Patrick Mahomes is that elite of a quarterback when you want to talk about 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league going against each other, that ultimately, when you look at a battle like this, the better QB prevails. And I have a lot of faith in Kansas City. I really do. And I don't know if it's just because Jason Kelsey being in the fans, taking his shirt off with fans and taking a trip with Bill's Mafia maybe has changed my mind a little bit. But I guess we could say they used to say bought you're being bought in with certain teams. I'm not saying I'm bought in as like a quote unquote Chiefs fan, but I'm definitely bought in by the fact that this team has a point to prove and that they're not done being dominant. And I think it has to go with respect that they've been in the AFC Championship, I don't know how many years down a row?
Well, that's 6 years in a row.
Yeah.
So they've been here for a reason. And I said this, I want to say before, maybe I said it after the first Super Bowl win for Patrick Mahomes. I don't remember. But I'd said in the past that I truly believe when you look at Patrick Mahomes at the end of his career, we will be comparing him, if not having him being better than Tom Brady. I truly believe he's that good of a quarterback. And that's what it comes down to when you get to these types of things. When you look at even defenses technically on paper. So I have a lot of faith in Kansas City.
I'm not going to discredit the team at all. I mean, they've done great things, and Patrick Mahomes is going to be an all-time quarterback in the league, top 2 or 3 probably by the time his career is all set and done. But I'm sick of them. I really am. I mean, I've had enough of it, and the NFL is going to very much want them in the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes is a draw, and the people who did not watch the Super, I just want to say the people who did not
for
watch
the sakes, the Lions or the Ravens and the 49ers better not be the teams in the Super Bowl. Otherwise, that conspiracy is going to be going on forever.
It will.
The color
but
one? Yeah.
listen, there have been a lot of calls that have gone the Chiefs' way this year, more than have gone against them. And, I don't know. I'm just sick of it. And the NFL is going to want them there because the amount of people that will tune into the Super Bowl because Travis Kelce is playing in it that wouldn't have typically tuned into the Super Bowl, the numbers are going to be insane if the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. So the NFL is going to want that. As a fan, I want the Ravens. I want some new blood. I want to see Lamar Jackson prove some of these doubters wrong. I think Ravens-Lions would be a really fun Super Bowl, but we'll see what happens with Kansas City. I don't understand why you hate Baltimore so much, but
I just can't. Like, Lamar is Lamar not so annoying to you? Like, every time I see him step out on the field, I'm actively angry.
well,
And if
he doesn't even say anything.
that's the problem. He doesn't speak. If I had to see another Harbaugh, if I see another Harbaugh win a championship, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna go crazy. I can't handle this. But the thing with Lamar is I think it just bothers me that he does this thing where he puts the entire game in his hands. It's like if we make a little Northwestern reference right now, Boo Booey on Northwestern sometimes pisses me off so much because he thinks that he is so great that no one else needs to touch the ball, right? Lamar thinks he is so great that no one else needs to touch the ball. It is him and him only that is going to win himself a Super Bowl. And that's not the way the team works. That's when the Ravens have lost in previous years to the Titans and when they've gone down the playoffs, it's because he thinks that he's going to win the Super Bowl for someone. And one person doesn't win a Super Bowl. And so it bothers me that he does this thing where he's like, okay, the ball's in my hands. I'm going to do it all by myself. And Patrick Mahomes sort of does it, but does it in a different way because he doesn't take it just himself as much. He's able to still pass the ball. Whereas Lamar, when the game comes down to it, is just going to run. And that pisses me off because I don't need that. I don't want to see that game. I don't need that.
I mean, he's the best running quarterback in the league. So you're
but
telling
it's
him
just
not to be
annoying to
mobile
me.
anymore?
But it's like you're a quarterback. Pass the ball. I don't need to see you run around like a crazy.
I think there's a balance.
It works. What are we
But it's
talking about here?
annoying because then it works until it doesn't, and then the whole thing goes downhill, and then they get crushed. I also just feel like the Lions. I also think there's a vendetta because the Lions were really bad against the Ravens, so bad against the Ravens, and I cannot see them play the Ravens again. They played the Ravens once this season and it derailed their season for half the season. The losses they have, basically all came after that Ravens game. I cannot see them go up against the Ravens. If the Lions somehow miraculously beat the 49ers, I need them to play the Chiefs. It's not even a question. I cannot be playing Baltimore. I refuse to play Baltimore.
I mean, they would have lost to the Chiefs too if Kadarius Toney wasn't Kadarius Toney.
That's okay. But if the Lions go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Chiefs, that's gonna feel a lot more okay to me than if they go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Ravens. If the first time the Lions get to the Super Bowl is against the Ravens, I'm gonna be really annoyed. That's gonna make me really angry. And they lose to Lamar Jackson. As if I couldn't hate them more, that's gonna really bother me.
And you guys, one last thing too. Yeah. How many teams do you think are regretting not offering in the offseason 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson? Think about this. I think it's still crazy. How could you not want to get your franchise back?
And,
I,
you know, you
I mean,
got
I
teams
love
that are
Daniel.
spending $40 million on Daniel Jones and Geno Smith, yet they won't make a very manageable
Right.
trade for Lamar.
Like to multiple, even if you don't get it, why? Why would you
Lamar's
not? Like,
on a
it
streak
still
right now.
blows
He's
my
hot,
mind.
but he's gonna get cold. He's either really good or really bad. He's not consistent. Patrick Mahomes is more consistent. It bothers me that Lamar has a little hot streak at the end of the season and is gonna be able to do his little thing. Like, he's annoying to me because then he's gonna get cold at some point and he's gonna suck. He's so bad at some points. There's no reason that he should be winning a Super Bowl when he's just on his little hot streak. Congratulations, Lamar. Your legs are working this time. Like, in 2 weeks next year when his legs don't work, great, then he's bad again. Like, he can win the MVP. I don't care if he wins that, but there's no reason that one player should be leading an entire team to the Super Bowl. That is not fair.
Jared Goff has been on quite the hot streak here, and he's goes on cold streaks. I know that from my fantasy team. He's a big reason why I finished in
Jared
last
Goff,
place.
but Jared Goff doesn't like control the whole team like Lamar does. Like, Jared Goff doesn't take credit for the entire team's success. The way that Lamar thinks that he is the entire Ravens team drives me crazy. Like, Jared Goff, when he sucks, is in like a cute way, because then the whole stadium like has to cheer him on, like, don't worry, Jared, like, we love you, like, you're great, like, don't get sad. And like, it's in like a very Detroit way. It's in a very like, okay, we know you're part of the Lions, like, you could suck, but we're gonna tell you you're good. Lamar doesn't have that aspect. He's just, I'm great, I'm gonna be great, even when he's bad. Like, he's not even able to own up to the fact that he's bad. And so I don't know. I don't know what it is about him. I don't know where it comes from, but I really don't want to see Lamar in the Super Bowl. I'm so serious.
Okay, let's transition to something else. So the NFL awards nominees, the finalists have come out. Here are my problems. Comeback Player of the Year. Listen, Damar Hamlin died on the field essentially. You got to give him the award. I know some people are like, oh come on, but the fact that he actually came back, decided to play, you got to give it to him. But Tua as a finalist, I don't get that one. Tim, I know you sent it in the group chat too. But the worst thing for me is that both Dak and Brock Purdy are finalists for MVP over Tyreek Hill. This award is just for the quarterback of the best team these days, and it's ridiculous. I mean, Lamar has earned it. I know Zoe doesn't think so, but Lamar
No,
has
he's
earned
earned
it.
MVP because he's a most valuable player, but he's not a most valuable team. Anyway, continue.
No. See, I think Lamar has earned it because he beat those teams and players in the conversation at the
Yes,
time when it was part of the discussion, and I think that's fair.
yes. But my problem is, how is Tyreek Hill not in consideration when he had one of the best wide receiver seasons ever? And you're giving Dak Prescott, and more importantly to me, Brock Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy is the definition of a system quarterback. I know he doesn't turn over the ball that much. I think he gets a little too much hate. He seems like a good kid, but I think if you plug almost any quarterback into the Niners system, because Kyle Shanahan, to me, is the best offensive coach in the league by a wide margin. I think most quarterbacks in that situation would be in the same spot. I think if you took a lot of the NFL starters right now and made them the starter on the San Francisco 49ers, they'd be in the same position right now. So that's
So Zach Wilson.
I don't know about him, but
It
there's
has
a
to be
lot
a
of
capable
people.
quarterback. It has to be someone who can throw the ball.
I'm telling you, I think if Tyrod Taylor was the starter for the San Francisco 49ers, they would definitely be in the playoffs. I don't know if they would reach the NFC Championship game, but they would definitely be in the playoffs, and I think they could win a playoff game with Tyrod Taylor as quarterback.
No, I could agree with that, and I'll also say it like this:
Give him
you
Nick
have to.
Foles.
When Tyrod was in Buffalo, they were playoff contenders. It wasn't like they weren't. So they may be a better team. The only thing with Tyrod again is injuries, and that's my problem as a Giants fan in general is injuries. You got to be healthy and available if you want to win.
Yeah,
It's not his fault his lung gets punctured by the team doctor.
No, well, that's not his fault.
Every time that he gets screwed. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Is it fitting that Harbaugh is the coach of the Chargers, by the way? Isn't that very fitting with all the conspiracies and everything with the Chargers that he ends up landing there? And we thought it could have been Seattle. That would have been really funny. But didn't end up.
I like the move. I think Harbaugh with Herbert, I think that offense is gonna click. I know Zoe hates the Harbaughs, but
is Kellen Moore going? I didn't read. Is Kellen Moore going?
It's hard because I really like Austin Eckler and I really like Justin Herbert. And so I'm still going to root for the Chargers. Like, I do enjoy the Chargers team generally. It's just annoying that Harbaugh's going to be with them. But I'm still not like fully against the Chargers. I just am annoyed at Harbaugh's success.
They just need a coach that can figure things out because they have frankly had two awful coaches in a row in Staley and Anthony Lynn. I mean, it's been a mess. Let's finish with coaching quickly in the NBA, Tim. So crazy news comes out 2 days ago. The Milwaukee Bucks fire Adrian Griffin, who was 30-13 in his first season. They were in second place. There's still no clear decision as to why he was fired. Then you got the whole Bucks team dancing last night before the game, all excited that he's gone. And now Doc Rivers, who for some reason gets another coaching job, even though he's had one championship 16 years ago with the super team and has failed in the playoffs over and over and over again with good teams, and he keeps getting A-level jobs. Make it make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense, but this is my exact argument for football, which you call me crazy for, because just because you're a proven winning coach record-wise doesn't mean that you've done anything of relevancy to be productive in a sport that ultimately requires relevancy and success to be the ultimate goal. And I'll just put it like this for the Bucks. Listen, if you wanted to make this move at the end of the year, I would have been all for it. Listen, you get to the playoffs, you fail. I appreciate urgency. That's a big thing I appreciate. But to make this move when you're in the middle of the season, not having a bad year, to me, it comes down to one of two things. I go back to all the way to the Nets situation, right? Where, yeah, and granted, different team, of course, but right, you had Kyrie and you had KD upset. So they make a transaction and then they end up getting the coach they want. I feel that it's probably your higher up players complaining. It comes down to ego. And at the end of the day, that's what stinks about the NBA, because it doesn't feel like a team aspect. It feels like players control the franchise, and it feels like it's all political. And that's a problem to me, because that's not sports. And maybe that's the reason why the NBA also to me isn't enjoyable, to be honest with you. Because we've talked about multiple times, right? Christmas in the NBA, for example, when we last talked about that, right, doesn't feel like what it used to be. And to be honest with you, the NBA this season, yeah, I was real excited for the Milwaukee Bucks to start the year, but now we're kind of middle of the year, and it's like, all right, like, yeah, the NBA is going, but there's nothing really for me individually to be excited about. So I don't know. It's just a thing that I feel that takes away from the NBA a little bit. And regardless of what happens with the Milwaukee Bucks, I hope this is a great move for them. Again, I appreciate the urgency, but I don't think it's acceptable for the timing of it, unless there's situations which you don't know, which I don't want to judge. But also, again, I'm not trying to get political, but very odd too that CNN of all places was the place that broke the news on this. Like that, I don't understand either. It makes no sense to me.
And then the other group that gets just a weird spot here is ESPN, because they get rid of Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson because they thought they were going to pursue head coaching jobs. So they hire Doc Rivers because they think, oh, he's not going to be in the league anymore. And he gets a job mid-season. So now they're down an A-list announcer, who, first of all, is not that good of an announcer. And I mean, his voice sounds like he like rubbed sandpaper over it for 45 minutes. But, you know, it's just crazy that this all went down. And again, the Bucks were second in the East. They were 30-13. And I personally think Adrian Griffin, at least, you know, with Doc Rivers' track record, I would have given him a shot one time in the playoffs instead of Doc Rivers, who has blown more 3-2 leads than any coach in the history of the league. But I'll leave it at that. Next week, we're going to recap the conference championship games. Best of luck to Zoe's Detroit Lions. We are a Lions stand show right now. We're all rooting for them, hoping they can win the Super Bowl and upset the San Francisco 49ers. And we'll see whether they play the hated Lamar Jackson or the Taylor Swift. So
the vibes are so good. The vibes are so good here. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. You guys don't understand. The three of us being Lions fans right now, it's like my world is coming together.
Enjoy it.
What is the betting odds of Jason Kelce being shirtless again this week, by the way?
Pretty high. I mean,
Tim, you have such a vested interest in him being shirtless.
No, it's just very interesting. Like a week after he retires, he's out there with Bill's Mafia, having the time of his life, and then taking shirtless pictures with fans. Like, I don't know, it's just weird.
He's living his little frat boy era.
It's like, I don't get him a keg.
Tim, we gotta get you shirtless at a game.
Oh no, that's never happening. Never ever happened.
You're telling me you're not gonna hold and like jump over? Please, we're recreating this.
Maybe, but overall, I don't know. It's just interesting, especially in the freezing cold. Might I add? I don't know. I mean, you look at all what happened in Kansas City during the Frozen Bowl against Miami, where you had all these fans going to the hospital and everything for freezing cold temperatures. So I don't know. It's just very interesting because I can't name another player a week after retirement. Granted, there's not a lot of them that have brothers playing, in the playoffs and at the same time. But you just don't see it too often, all, which is why it's just weird to me. But it also gives me that feeling I want to see Jason Kelsey play with Travis to end out his career, but that's not going to happen. And also, here's my one last question too before we end things off, Eddie. Do we think Travis Kelsey will retire potentially if they lose? Because I don't know.
No. If they win the Super Bowl, I would not rule it out. But if
I
they
don't think so.
lose, he's coming back.
He's not done.
Retire with his brother?
I don't think if he loses.
But what if he's joining all this
younger?
Traveling the country, doesn't have to practice, can do what he wants, live his own life.
Yeah, 2 years younger. He's got some time. Also, Jason has aged in a way that Travis has not. Like, you can just tell. Like, Jason is 2 years older than him, but looks a lot older.
I mean,
like,
Jason looks like a 50-year-old coal
yeah,
mine.
like Jason has been through it. So I think Travis stays for a while. He's still at this peak. I mean, I think Jason was just fed up because he saw his team like crumble apart, and he was like that's got to be really frustrating because it was a team that was so great. And Eddie understands this more than anyone. But like, you guys were on the top of the world, and then it like kind of all fell apart. And so I think that was probably frustrating because he didn't want to have to build back up. But even if the Chiefs lose, they aren't going to have to build back up from nothing. Like, their defense is great. They're on the come up. They need 1 or 2 wide receivers, and their offense is going to be like elite. So I don't think Travis goes anywhere. Also, the Chiefs fall off if Travis goes anywhere. So I think he knows that. And I think the fan base like kills him if that happens. Like, he can't go anywhere. It's not going to happen.
I'm just happy maybe the end of the tush push. That's all I'm happy about too. Rather he gets banned or not. That was the main man creating all the success.
It was Jason Kelsey. I mean, he's a Philadelphia legend. He put out a Christmas album. The songs are great. I mean, we'll miss him in Philly. But that's going to do it here for Sports Speak Live, episode 163. We'll be back next week, talk about the conference championships. Thanks to Zoe Alter for joining us. But until next time, I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
Signing off here on Sports Speak Live. Enjoy conference championship weekend.